Let's give a warm welcome to one of the newest sponsors on our channel, Arken Optics, who is now the reason why we're going to finally get this micro pistol optic off of our double Eagle DWS Lupus and finally throw on something a little bit more tasteful. But what comes in the box? Designed to perform with rugged precision is the Arken EP-8. And let's not forget about the worldwide lifetime warranty. Manual, optic covers, the optic, the adjustment arm, and 2 stickers. The team over at Arken markets this as the all-in-one, ready-to-shoot LPVO optic bundle, which I would argue is pretty accurate with their pre-installed and pre-leveled 34mm mount. Which is huge because I don't have to level this myself. We can go ahead and thread on our throw lever. And why don't we go over some of its features? On both the back and the front, we have the ocular and the objective lens covers. Both snap closed and open and are installed via a rubber ring. Now, when it comes to both those glass lenses, both of them are crafted with genuine Japanese ED glass, which is largely why the sight picture is so unbelievably clear when looking through it. I don't know if the camera's doing it justice, but it is like looking through air. The first interface you'll notice is the adjustment ring, which moves between 1 and 8 times magnification, that of which moves smoothly and is clear at both the completely zoomed in 8 times and all the way out of the 1. Holy smokes. Now let's not forget about our adjustment turrets. The windage and elevation are both on the top and the bottom, both held in place with 2 aluminum caps and are adjustable and click into place without the need of tools, which is really nice to see. The only thing I think I would change is if for some reason we could throw an O-ring here to keep moisture out between the cap and the turret. Now, to make matters even cooler, the dial on the left is your illumination turret. Yeah, I said illumination. Now, as we turn on the KLG Reticle, the newest part of the Arken line of scopes, this is something that they designed, which I actually really like, and it has 9 different illumination adjustments down to its lowest, which you'll see in just a second, and we'll bump it back up to its highest illumination for any of your brighter backgrounds. And I really like the fact that this reticle is so large and in charge and out of the way so you could see anything that's in the center of it, and it doesn't block it out like some of the smaller reticles that you'll see. Another thing to note is it does also have night vision settings, which will allow you to use this reticle with night vision goggles. Now, don't let me forget, there is actually a diopter under this cap that you won't be able to access unless you pop this cap off. However, it does allow you to adjust your eye to the eyepiece, which is really nice to see. More adjustments means better. I'd also like to appreciate the 4-point mounting hardware they have on both the front and the back of the scope. It helps keep things in place rather than wiggling around. And the fact that on the entire unit, they use star bits instead of Allen bolts because these are less likely to strip. And yes, obviously with illuminating reticles, you need a place to store a battery, and that is just inside of this cap here. And you can see it takes CR2032 batteries. Oh, and this cap does in fact feature an O-ring to keep moisture out of the battery compartment. Now, as we mount our new scope, and then we start to test it out, I do want to mention a couple specs. Specifically that the EP-8 KLG comes in at just over 10 inches long, which to me makes it light enough that you might not even notice it's on there, but still makes it one of the more sizable LPVOs out there on the market. Alright, maybe I lied. That's pretty hefty now, but holy smokes, that looks nice on there. Now, where this is Airsoft, I feel like it's essential that I mentioned to you the hop-up is pre-adjusted. So why don't we go ahead and load a mag with some .32s. We'll toss it inside the Lupus. And why don't we see, we'll illuminate the reticle, where our BBs are flying. It's a little on the higher side, but it is pretty close. I don't really know if we have to adjust that very much. So I'll go ahead and make a minor adjustment to the elevation turret, and we'll see if that makes much of a difference. But again, for some reason, we're like nearly zeroed in. And let's give that a go. That's nearly dead on. Now right now we're at that 1x zoom, which gives you 22 degrees field of view. But as we really start to zoom ourselves in here to the 8x zoom, which is absolutely ridiculous, swallowing the reticle. Sorry if I can't keep this in view. We start to look at a 2.78 field of view, which is like null because of how tight that zoom is. I really wish I could get better images through the scope for you, but unfortunately, being that cameras and scopes don't tend to line up the best, it's just not something that's totally possible. Also, with this being an Airsoft replica, you would probably want to use a laser bore sight with anything real steel, but we can't because our barrels are only 6mm. I just cannot quite stress to you enough how attractive that reticle design is and how clear the glass is. And I know I'm geeking out a little bit. I'm sorry. This just might be the nicest LPVO that I've ever gotten to lay my eyes on. So freaking cool. But before we totally conclude on this out-of-the-box review, why don't we first play around with some head size targets? You know, really get a feel for it. Hit. 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 Damn. I dropped the mag. I'd be lying to you if I told you Arken was a company that I was previously familiar with. This is actually my first time with any of their products so far, and I've got to say they made a really nice impression. When the company first reached out to me and asked if I wanted to take a look at this scope, the first thing they mentioned was the reticle and how unique it really was. And completely unbiased, I can absolutely see why this thing is unique, it's attractive, it's clear, and it's totally out of the way of the sight picture. Now, unfortunately, that's not the only part of this scope that suffers from how well my camera's capability of picking it up is. I'd be lying to you if I told you I owned any more than 3 LPVOs before this one, and yes, this one is hands down the nicest one I've held. Something with those I've also noticed is the sight picture is consistently a little bit small. However, on the Arken, for some reason the sight picture appears large even in a small profile. I might just be talking out my rear here, but with some of the lower quality LPVOs that I've held and used, a lot of the times with the sight picture from whatever the optic is picking up, the eyepiece doesn't enlarge it enough, and it still sees a really small sight picture. However, in this case, it really enlarges the image of what you're seeing out of the small center of this reticle, and it looks like a full-size scope. Now, I also know these flappies, well, is it durable? Well, I'd say so. Now, I also know flappies aren't everybody else's forte, but what's really nice is they actually include this cover in case for some reason you don't like these, want to protect your optic, and don't mind just taking it off and storing it somewhere when you are using it. I mean, seriously, I think the only thing that I would change is probably throwing O-rings at the base of these caps, unless for some reason under the inside of these dials there is some way to keep moisture out. I mean, come to think of it, it does say waterproof on the box, so it probably does. All of that packed in with a night vision mode and pre-aligned out of the box. I also really appreciate how on every area that has screws, they mention how much pounds and torque that you'll need in order to tighten them correctly. I don't have the tools to do that, but it's cool. I mean, talk about user-friendly. I gotta say the Arken EP-8 sits hands down in the best LPVO section of my collection that I've ever had. Really, really, really like this thing. Super cool. I appreciate you guys for sending it out, Arken. And again, if quality doesn't speak for itself, a company that offers a worldwide lifetime warranty, I feel like you can't beat that. Until next time, I'll see you on the next adventure. Peace.